A millionaire farmer's hidden wealth revealed after her children leave her in the asylum. From the very first moment, an eerie silence hung over the old farmhouse, broken only by the faint rustle of dry leaves stirred by an unseen breeze. Strange shadows flickered across cracked, peeling walls, as if the house itself was whispering secrets it could no longer hold. The floorboards creaked under invisible footsteps, sending chills crawling up the spine. Outside, a lone coyote howled, sharp, desperate, haunting, cutting through the still Texas night. Something was terribly wrong. Eleanor Mitchell, once the sharp-eyed queen of endless golden fields, now sat behind cold, barred windows in a decaying mental institution. Her fingers trembled as they traced invisible lines on the faded wallpaper, while her mind slipped further into shadows and doubt. The lonely quiet of the asylum crushed her, a deafening contrast to the rustling life of wheat and cattle she once commanded. The fields that had sung beneath the wide Texas sky were gone, replaced by stiff white walls and the unyielding gaze of guards and doctors. But it wasn't just the walls that confined Eleanor. Her heart ached from betrayal sharper than any chain. Her own children had abandoned her, fleeing to claim the vast estate she had built from dust and sweat. Cold whispers in the town said they'd schemed in secret, hungry for the profits Eleanor's family name guaranteed. Some even swore they'd seen strange figures prowling the grounds of the empty farm at night, shadows that didn't belong to any living soul. Townsfolk muttered about curses, about haunted legacies, about a mystery wrapped tight around the Mitchell fortune. And in that suffocating silence, Eleanor's mind clung to the fragments of a secret only she seemed to hold. The secret of her husband's disappearance decades ago. The night he vanished still burned in her memory. A phone call cut short, a locked bedroom, a hidden compartment in the old oak desk no one was supposed to find. Now in a dim corner of her cell, beneath layers of dust and neglect, Eleanor had stumbled upon a cryptic note in her late husband's handwriting, a tangled riddle alluding to the key beneath the dry well, and a promise that the truth would shake the roots of our family tree. Her pulse raced against the sterile hum of the asylum. Could this be the clue to reveal a hidden fortune? Real wealth too dangerous for the greedy, too true for her scheming children? Or was it just another cruel trick of a mind slipping away? Then there was Nurse Clara, soft eyes that saw through Eleanor's fractured soul, whispered words. That lit a fragile flame in the darkness. For the first time in years, Eleanor felt a sliver of hope, a voice that understood the hurt and yearning beyond the diagnoses. Together, in whispered moments between shifts and silent nights, they began to piece together shadows and half-remembered hints, chasing ghosts, both real and imagined. But with every step, the walls seemed to close in tighter, the secrets twisted deeper, and Eleanor's heart sank darker. Did she really know the family she had raised? Or was she trapped in a labyrinth of lies and betrayals, sewn by hands close to hers, hands that no longer held hers back? The question hung sharp. In the stale air, colder than the sterile blankets, Can Eleanor Mitchell unravel the truth and reclaim what was stolen from her? Or is she a prisoner of a betrayal far darker than she ever dared imagine? Hey, before we continue with this incredible story, I need to give you an important alert. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without warning. Just take a quick look at the red button down below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content coming your way. And since you're here, drop that powerful like that helps me so much with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love meeting every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. If you like stories about farmers, about everyday life on the farm, and want to know what really happens in the daily lives of the biggest farmers in the world, the hidden stories of the richest owners, and the secrets of the farm girls that the media doesn't reveal, check out our virtual book with the most famous and secret stories from the farm. Click on the first link in the video comments and get yours now. You need to watch this now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait another second to share. Only true fans understand how vital it is to back the channel through these small but powerful steps. Let's dive deeper into Eleanor's secret-filled world. The stale air hung heavy in Eleanor's tiny cell. Her fingers trembled as she unfolded the brittle paper again, stomach curling in knots. Nurse Clara was there, whispering soft promises, pulling Eleanor back from the edge of a frightening abyss. The note's words swirled in her mind. The key beneath the dry well. An impossible riddle wrapped in shadows. Suddenly, the lights flickered. A distant thud echoed down the empty corridor. Something shook the walls. Eleanor's breath hitched, her pulse pounding like a wild drum. Nurse Clara's face paled, eyes darting toward the door. "Stay calm," she breathed. But the tremor grew louder, footsteps pounding outside, clattering like a storm erupting too close to fragile glass. The door slammed open. Two men in dark suits burst in, their faces tight, unreadable. One held a thin envelope, the kind that carry bad news and worse secrets. Eleanor's heart froze. "Eleanor Mitchell?" the taller man snapped. "You're being moved. Immediately." "No," Eleanor croaked, eyes begging Nurse Clara, who gave a broken shake. The men grabbed Eleanor's arms, cold and merciless, fingers sinking into her. Skin like ice. She gasped, panic raw and bleeding in her chest. "Why? What's happening?" No answer came, only a sudden wave of suffocating fear. As they dragged her through winding hallways, past silent patients and flickering lights, until they reached a small, barred window overlooking the fields she once owned. The moon hung full and cruel above the empty farm. And then, an explosion. A burst of flame ripped through the night, lighting the sky red. Smoke billowed from the distant barn, the heart of Eleanor's legacy. Flames consuming decades of sweat and soil, blackening memories that once tasted like home. "Your children," the second man muttered grimly. "They set the fire." Shock cracked Eleanor's world like lightning, her throat clenched tight. Betrayal, bitter and sharp, poured like acid down her spine. Her very blood felt poisoned. Nurse Clara's face crumpled, tears spilling fast. "They wanted to erase everything and just silence you. This isn't just greed, it's war." Eleanor's mind spiraled. The note, the dry well, the strange figures. Were the whispered curses a warning? Or was this a battle far darker than she ever imagined? But then the man pulled another envelope from his coat. A photograph slipped out. Eleanor's breath caught hard as her eyes locked on the grainy image. Her husband, alive and standing beside her eldest child, both smiling, arms draped in a way she had never seen before. Alive, the world blurred. The man's voice cut through the chaos. He never disappeared. He was hidden, protected by your children, but not for your good. Eleanor's knees threatened to buckle. A storm of cold fire raged inside her chest. The truth she cradled all these years was a lie. Her own flesh and blood had locked away her husband, lied to her, and now they were burning down her past. Why? Eleanor's whisper barely held together. Everything shattered. Her trust, her pain, the brittle hope that had kept her alive in this cage. The suit pulled back, a hooded figure waiting outside the room. It was a man, older now, but unmistakable. The man who vanished in the night. Her husband. He looked at Eleanor with eyes darkened, distant. A ghost returned, but not as the man she remembered. Why? Eleanor's voice cracked again, louder this time. Why leave me in the dark? Why abandon me? He stepped forward. His lips barely moved. Because the truth would kill you. Silence crashed over them. The guards tightened their grip. Nurse Clara's grab was desperate, furious. Eleanor's chest tightened, breaths shallow but desperate. Trapped between terror, Sky whispered one final promise. Nothing would ever be the same again. And Eleanor was left wondering, how deep did this betrayal run? How far did the secrets stretch? And most of all, who was the real enemy? The flames outside crackled and snapped, red tongues licking higher against the black sky. Eleanor's breath caught in her throat, heart slamming against her ribs like a wild thing trapped. Her husband stood there, shadowed, silent, his eyes, once warm, now cold as steel, didn't meet hers. The guards tightened their grip again. Nurse Clara's hand gripped Eleanor's arm so hard it burned. Why? Eleanor's voice was raw, desperate. Why hide? Why lie? He stepped closer, voice low, almost a whisper. Because the truth is darker than you can imagine. Suddenly, the lights flickered. The old walls groaned like the house itself was waking. Eleanor blinked, confused. Her husband's figure started to blur, then split. What? No, that couldn't be. Two men stood before her, identical, but not quite. One face cracked into a cruel smile. The other stayed grim. A pulse hammered through Eleanor's ears, drowning all sound but a quick, sharp clicking, like a camera shutter snapping too fast to catch the whole picture. Wait, Eleanor gasped. Who are you? What is this? The man with the smile took a cold step forward. Your husband? No, not him, not really. The grim man's eyes pierced through the room, slow and deadly. He's your children's puppet. Eleanor's stomach twisted. Her knees wobbled. What do you mean, my children? Are not who you think, the smiling man said. They never wanted you to find the truth. Because the Mitchell fortune, it's not just land, not just money. A shadow moved behind the guards, unnoticed at first. Thin, quick, silent. Then a sickening snap. A gunshot. Blood bloomed on Nurse Clara's shirt. She crumpled to the floor with a wet cough, her eyes pleading, "Run." For a moment, the room spun in slow motion. Eleanor clawed at the cold floorboards. Pain exploded in her ribs. She looked up. The hushed murmur outside shattered with yells, footsteps rushing closer. The first man's smile stretched wider, almost hungry. "Let me tell you the secret." Eleanor struggled to her feet, trembling hands balancing her. "The fortune is cursed." His voice dropped, fierce. "Buried beneath the dry well, yes, but it's not gold or land deeds. It's a secret so toxic it turned your family into enemies." Her breath caught. "A curse?" "No." The other man snapped. "It's worse. It's a legacy of blood, of betrayal, far older than your husband's disappearance." Suddenly, the grim man pulled out a small, meaty box from his coat. He flipped it open like a coffin, revealing a set of photographs, torn and stained with something dark, something that smelled like death. Eleanor's eyes widened as she leaned in. Photos of her children, smiling, but beneath them, other faces, twisted and unrecognizable. Faces marked by scars, eyes full of hatred. And then, one photo made her stomach drop. Herself. But not the woman she remembered. In the grainy black and white, she was holding a knife, her hands stained with fresh blood. "No, that's impossible," Eleanor whispered, shaking her head. "I would never." The man's voice cut through her denial. "You did, a long time ago." A scream burst from the hall outside. Guard shouts. The doors rattled violently. The smiling man closed the box slowly. "We came here to wake you up, Eleanor. Not just from the asylum, but from the lies you've lived." Her world cracked open. The husband who never vanished. The children who burned down her legacy. And now, herself, painted as the villain. Nurse Clara's weak voice pierced through the chaos. "Eleanor, trust yourself. Remember who you are." But how could she, when everything she thought she knew was a lie? When the mirror reflected someone stranger than the darkest nightmare. As the room shook with pounding feet and broken locks, Eleanor's mind spiraled into one desperate question. Who was the real enemy, and how deep did the poison run? The heavy banging on the door grew louder. Voices shouted, rough and urgent. Guards, maybe police, scrambling in. Eleanor's chest felt tight, her breath shallow and jagged. Nurse Clara's blood darkened the floor, her eyes still pleading. "Remember, you have to." But before Eleanor could make sense of it, a deep voice cut through the chaos. Slow, steady, impossible. "Stop." Confusion flickering across their faces. From the shadows at the corner of the room stepped a figure, tall and steady, hands bare, but eyes cold like ice. The guards hesitated. Even the shouting outside dwindled into an uneasy hush. It was Eleanor's eldest child, but not how she remembered. Gone was the polished smile, the bragging pride that burned in the papers. Instead, this child Her own son or daughter stood pale, bone-thin, eyes wild with something Eleanor couldn't place. Terror? Desperation? Or surrender? "I'm sorry," they whispered, voice cracking. "I never meant for any of this." Eleanor blinked, heart hammering. A storm of questions and disbelief slammed her. "You?" The child took a shaking step forward, eyes locked on her. "They made me do it. The men you met, they're not who they seem. I'm not the enemy." "Who then?" Eleanor gasped, the burning pain in her, ribs pulsing like a warning bell. The child's lips trembled, jaws clenched tight. "There's someone else. Someone who's been pulling the strings. Someone none of us saw coming." A sudden metallic scrape. The grim man's hand darted beneath his coat. Eleanor screamed, spinning away, breath catching in a choke. But before the gun went off, another sound tore through the silence. A sharp crack, a sick thud. The smiling man collapsed, clutching his chest, eyes wide in shock. The room exploded into chaos. Guards lunged, shouts bounced off cold walls. And standing there, in the middle of the storm, was Nurse Clara, alive. Blood stained her shirt, but her eyes shone fierce, wild. Almost unstoppable. "What did I tell you?" she hissed, wincing but steady. "It's never been about money or curses. This is about control." Eleanor's head swam. "Clara, you're... how?" A dry, bitter laugh escaped Nurse Clara's cracked lips. "I'm no nurse, Eleanor. Not really. I was sent here to watch you, to keep you quiet." Eleanor's world shivered, breaking apart faster than she could hold. "You lied to me." The words were a ragged whisper, drowning under the unforgiving flood of betrayal. Clara stepped closer, voice low and cutting. "Because they're coming for you, Eleanor, and the real enemy is someone you trusted most." Eleanor shivered, the walls seeming to lean. In closer, pressing out the light. "Who?" she begged, voice cracking. Before Clara could answer, the first man, the one who had smiled so cruelly, lifted his head, dark eyes gleaming. "You want the truth? Here it is." His lips curved into a cold grin. "You, Eleanor." Everything stopped. Her hands fell to her knees. The blood, belies, the secrets, they all pointed back to her. "I did what I had to," the man said softly. "You did more. You buried the truth deep inside your own mind. Locked it away, because the Mitchell fortune depends on a monster." Eleanor shook. A hollow ache bloomed in her chest. Then another terrible sound. The old floor cracked, groaned, and beneath them something gave way. A hidden door swung open, revealing a narrow, dark stairway spiraling down into cold earth. The men looked at each other. The child stepped forward, eyes wide with fear. "It's time," the smiling man said. Eleanor swallowed. Her fingers gripped the chair, knuckles white. "Down there," she whispered, "is the truth." But what truth? And who would she find waiting in the shadows below? The flames outside crackled still. But inside, a darker fire was just beginning to burn, and Eleanor knew nothing would ever be the same again. The narrow stairway yawned below, swallowing the dim light and swallowing Eleanor's breath. Whole! Her hands shook, clutching the chair's worn arms like they were the last thing holding her to this world. The room seemed to tilt hard around her. "Is this really where all the lies end?" she whispered, voice ragged. The child stepped aside, eyes wide, white-knuckled, trembling like a leaf in a storm. The men exchanged grim looks, faces drawn tight. The air tasted cold, thick with fear and something else, something bitter. Eleanor felt Nurse Clara's breath on her neck. Steady now. Silent, like a watcher waiting for the hunt to begin. She took the first step down. Heartbeat, loud and uneven. The walls cramped in like the walls in her cell, but deeper, older, filled with secrets that breathed. At the bottom, a heavy wooden door stood cracked. Light spilled through, a sick yellow, like dying fireflies trapped in a jar. Eleanor pushed it open. What she saw made the blood in her veins freeze. The room was a shrine, not of gold, not money, not even land, but faces. Hundreds of photographs, taped, pinned, and scrawled over across the walls. Family trees with jagged blots of red ink, handwritten notes, names crossed out, thick lines tangled every face to the next, a chaotic web of betrayal. She stepped closer, heart pounding until it bruised. Then she saw it, a picture of herself, but it was new, fresh, not old and grainy, but sharp, terrible. A photo taken just days ago. She was smiling, but her eyes, they were empty, dead. And beside her, clear as the sun, was Nurse Clara. The smile on Clara's face wasn't kindness. It was triumph. Eleanor staggered back, breath caught deep in her throat. Before she could speak, a voice cracked the silence, cold as ice. "Did you really think you had allies?" Behind her, the heavy door slammed shut. She whirled to see her husband, no longer two men, just one now, standing in the shadowed doorway. But his face had changed. His eyes weren't just cold, they burned with something darker. Slowly, he stepped forward. "Eleanor," he said, voice soft but deadly. "You've been here longer than you know. Trapped, not by your children, but by yourself." Her stomach twisted. "What are you saying? I don't understand." He smiled, cruel and sharp. "None of this is real." Her hands trembled until they shook. "This place, the asylum, the fire, the men you met, even Nurse Clara, all parts of a lie, a cage your mind built." Eleanor's breath hitched. A panic clawed up her spine. You're telling me I'm still inside? Trapped where?" He raised a hand, and the walls around her shimmered, melting away like smoke. Suddenly, Eleanor was not in a dingy cell or an old farmhouse, but sitting in a sterile room, filled with blinking machines and harsh light. She blinked, the sterile smell hitting her like a slap. A woman's voice whispered nearby, "Eleanor, can you hear me?" Her head lolled, a white-haired nurse leaning close. Her heart cracked wide open, then slammed shut. The husband, the children, Nurse Clara, the fire, the notes. None of it had happened. Or maybe it was all inside a fractured mind that refused to let go. And Eleanor was still trapped, not in an asylum, but inside her own broken memories. The real question now: what nightmare was this? And how would she ever wake up? Eleanor's eyes blinked hard, the harsh light slicing through her lids like razor blades. The machines beeped steadily, cold and unfeeling. Her breath was shallow, sharp in her throat, like a cracked window letting in a chill wind. She tried to move, but her arms were pinned down, heavy straps across her wrists and chest. Panic hit like a fist. She twisted, heart hammering. No answers, no windows. Just silent white walls and faces she didn't know, all watching, waiting. A nurse leaned close, soft voice breaking through the haze. "Eleanor, you've been through a lot. Just rest now." Rest? How could she rest with the storm roaring inside her? The fire, the lies, the faces behind the photos, the shadows swallowing her whole. Her mind clawed for something real. Then, a flicker. The nurse's eyes glazing over, a dark flicker beneath the surface. Something wild, sharp. Suddenly, the door slammed open. A man rushed in, uniform sharp, face unreadable, but urgency blazing in his eyes. He cut through the nurses like a blade. "Code red, security breach. Patient Eleanor Mitchell is unstable. All staff, converge." The room erupted. The nurses scattered, alarm bells racing. Eleanor's heart sank. What did they think she could do? She was bound, trapped in stinking tubes and wires. But then something shifted. The man in uniform stopped at the bed, bent low, voice just above a whisper, thick with dread. "She's not who she says." Eleanor's head snapped up. "What?" He ignored her, pulled a tablet from his pocket. With trembling fingers, he tapped the screen. A video flickered on. There, clear as daylight, was Eleanor, speaking calmly, standing on the farm. But she wasn't alone. Behind her stood a figure, tall, cloaked in shadows. The face was blurred, but the hand resting on her shoulder was chillingly familiar. Then the voice, hers, but cold, empty, in a language Eleanor didn't understand, but knew deep down was wrong for her. The man's voice cut through the silence. "There is no Eleanor Mitchell in this world, not really." The shock pushed through her ribs, twisting like a knife. Her head spun. What did he mean? She wasn't real? Had never been? Outside, echoes of footsteps, voices shouting orders she couldn't catch. The man pressed on, voice dropping like stone. "You're an experiment, a construct, a puppet wired to imitate, to remember, to believe. The real Eleanor died years ago." Eleanor's lips trembling, every breath tearing into her lungs. "No," she croaked. "I'm here. I remember everything. My husband, my children." He shook his head, cold and unyielding. "The husband you saw? A reflection, a projection. The children, fabrications of your mind, designed to keep you compliant. The farm, the fire, the stories were built to cage you." Her world cracked wide open, past and present bleeding together. The asylum, the memories, the lies. Her hands clenched the straps as if they'd snap. "Why?" she gasped. "Why create this? Why me?" The man's eyes darkened. Because you locked away a truth far worse than madness. The truth that threatened not just a family fortune, but the foundation of everything they built. Tears burned down Eleanor's cheeks. Confusion crashed with grief. And then, the door behind them burst open. A woman stepped in. Tall, commanding, face carved from ice and steel. Dr. Langley. The man greeted. But something in her eyes froze the room. She didn't look at Eleanor. Instead, she spoke, voice sharp and biting. "Initiate the reset." Eleanor froze, heart plummeting. "Reset?" she whispered, voice cracking. What does that mean?" Langley's cold smile stretched cruel. "To erase the construct, to erase the soul, to wipe the false memories clean and start over." The machines ramped up. Cool air rushed in. Eleanor's body trembled violently, chest tightening as darkness clawed at her vision. She screamed, raw and desperate. But as the light swallowed her whole, one terrible thought burned fierce and clear. If she was just a shadow, then who controlled the light? And who had been writing her story all along? The world shrank to the cold hum of machines. Eleanor's screams faded into the walls, swallowed by the harsh white light. Her chest heaved, lungs burning with panic. The needles, the straps, they were real, trapping her like a bird with broken wings. Her mind clawed at the edges of the dark, desperate to hold on. Then, a sudden, sharp crack tore through the room. The machines jolted, flickered, then died. Silence slammed over everything. A silence so thick it pressed on Eleanor's lungs, suffocating. The door burst open with a bang. A man staggered in, face wild, clothes torn, eyes blazing with a mixture of fear and fury. "Stop!" he shouted, voice raw, ragged like a desperate prayer. The woman, Dr. Langley, turned sharply, startled. Nurses rushed in, but the man moved faster. He grabbed Eleanor's arm, pulling her free from the straps with a strength born of madness. Eleanor gasped, pain exploding through her wrists. Her heart pounded wildly, a thunder in her chest. "Who the hell are you?" Langley demanded, voice cold but edged with panic. The man's eyes, dark, haunted, locked onto hers. "I'm the only truth you've got left, Eleanor, and I'm here to break the lies." Eleanor blinked. The world wavered. "Who?" she whispered, trembling like a leaf in a storm. Before he could answer, the lights flickered again, and the shadows stretched, twisting the room into a nightmare. The man's figure shimmered, blurred, then shifted, morphed. In one impossible heartbeat, Eleanor's blood ran ice-cold. He wasn't a man. Not anymore. The wild-eyed stranger before her split open, skin cracking like old paint, flesh melting away in slow motion. And beneath, a face appeared that shouldn't exist. Her own, but twisted, hollowed, eyes empty, black pits, bleeding shadows. Eleanor stumbled back, fear curling tight in her throat. "No, no," she gasped, trying to tear her gaze away, but frozen like a moth caught in cruel light. The monstrous shape stepped forward, voice a broken echo of hers. "I am what you buried, what you locked inside, the real Eleanor." The room spun, her mind shattered. "You made me forget the real horror, the true crime." Eleanor's chest tightened, breath caught, tears burning behind her eyes. Who are you?" The shadow smiled, if a nightmare could smile. "The one who remembers everything you refuse to face. The truth you're too scared to hold." Behind the shadow, the wall flickered. The photographs, the notes, the twisted family tree burned away, replaced by cold, clinical screens showing chilling images. Her husband, kneeling over a lifeless body. Her children, faces twisted in silent screams. And there it was, the dry well. Not a treasure. Hidden beneath it, but a grave. A shallow pit, freshly disturbed. The figure leaned in close, whispering like a knife. "Your husband didn't vanish. He died because of you." Eleanor stumbled, hands shaking, tears blinding her. "Lies," she gasped. "No, it can't be. I don't remember that." The shadow's voice turned sharper, crueler. "You buried his death in your mind, buried your guilt beneath the dry soil. Your children weren't thieves. They were survivors. And Nurse Clara, she was never on your side." The door screamed open behind her. Nurses, guards, all frozen in shock. But Eleanor's world had flipped. Her own reflection, the ghost she had denied, loomed over her now. "Who are you? What have you done?" The shadow cracked a bitter, cold smile. "I am you, Eleanor, the part you tried to kill." Her breath hitched, heart pounding like a drum in her ears. Outside, the distant flames flickered, no longer burning her farm, but burning the last thread of the Eleanor she thought she knew. And the biggest question echoed in the vacuum of her mind. If the monster was inside her all along, then who was the woman in the asylum? And what nightmare had she really escaped? The light died suddenly, and everything went black. The light died suddenly. Darkness swallowed Eleanor whole, thick, suffocating, deeper than anything she'd known. Her breath caught, raw and ragged, as the cold pressed on her skin. Her heart slammed against her ribs like it wanted to break free, but the black held her tight. A whisper sliced through the silence, not soft, but sharp, like a blade scraping metal. "Not all truths are yours to hold." Eleanor spun, hands trembling, eyes straining for a shape. The shadow faded, but then the door exploded open. Blinding light rushed in, stabbing her retinas. Stale air vanished, replaced by the scent of damp earth and something sweet, like fresh peaches. Her lungs gasped, desperate for breath outside this nightmare. She wasn't alone. The room wasn't a cold underground cell anymore. It was a sun-blasted field. Green grass burst underfoot. Wildflowers nodded toward a sky smeared with pink and gold. The dry well stood a few steps away, a cracked stone rim, empty, silent. Her heart twisted, not with fear, but confusion. Where the hell was she? A figure stepped out from the golden haze. Not her husband, not Nurse Clara. A man, older, eyes sharp and steady like a hawk's. His voice reached her, calm but firm. "Eleanor," he said, "you're not ready." Her legs trembled. Ready for what? Her throat felt tight, words caught in snarled knots. He sighed, rubbing his jaw. "For the truth, or maybe the Truth you want. You've been living someone else's story. Eleanor's pulse spiked, slipping into wild beats. And whose story is that? She whispered. The man moved closer, shadows falling over his face. Yours, and not yours. Her world wobbled. Memories, lies, shadows melting into each other like smoke. Suddenly, a distant shout cracked the peace. Voices, faint, urgent, angry, cut through the soft hush of the fields. A woman's scream tore through the air. Eleanor gasped, spinning toward the noise. The grass rippled as more shapes emerged, figures cloaked in dark, running fast, urgent. Her breath seized. One face sliced through the crowd. Not her child, not her husband, but her. No, not Eleanor, but another. Her sane, sharp eyes, but wild, desperate, face bruised and streaked with tears. This can't be, Eleanor whispered, voice breaking. I'm here. The figure's eyes locked on hers. You never left, the other whispered, fingers reaching out but unable to touch. You buried me so deep, but I'm the real one, the one who's been awake. The field seemed to shudder as the twin voices clashed. Two Eleanors, two lives tangled and tearing. The man watched, grim. She's the truth you locked away. The truth the asylum couldn't hold. The truth you tried to kill. Eleanor stumbled back, head spinning, heart a furious drum. What am I? She gasped. Am I the shadow? Or the nightmare? Or something worse? Before the second Eleanor could answer, the ground beneath them cracked. The dry well shattered, jagged rocks tumbling into a gaping black abyss. From that darkness, a low, guttural growl erupted. A monstrous silhouette rose, hulking, twisted, eyes burning red. Not human, not quite shadow. Something ancient, terrible. And it wasn't coming for them. It was coming for Eleanor. The twin Eleanors froze. Terror, pure and raw, twisting their faces. Run, the man hissed. Before it's too late. But Eleanor's feet felt stuck. Her chest squeezed tight. The monster loomed closer. A living nightmare made flesh. And in that same moment, the second Eleanor's hand grabbed hers. A lightning touch that burned colder than ice and hotter than fire. Wake up, she whispered. Eleanor's eyes snapped open. Harsh white light again. Machines beeped. Nurses screamed. Her breath shuddered, chest heaving. But for one brutal second, she wasn't alone. That shadow, that monster, it was inside her. And the nightmare wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The pulse of the machine slowed. Eleanor's breath rattled in her throat, like dry leaves caught in a storm. Her eyes darted around the room, wild and soaked in fear. Nurses' screams, doctors' orders, all blurred into a low roar, muffling her heartbeat. Then, silence. So thick she could taste it. Suddenly, the harsh hospital lights flickered once, twice, and went out. Darkness slammed down like a coffin lid. A single, cold voice cut through the black. Eleanor Mitchell. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. Her chest tightened, ribs aching with each shallow breath. "Who's there?" she gasped. The dark shifted. A shape grew, sharp, impossible. Closer, closer, and then a burst of blinding light exploded in her eyes. She screamed, clutching her face, knees buckling. When she opened her eyes again, she wasn't in the hospital room, not in the asylum, not even near the farm. She was standing in a sterile courtroom. Bright lights, cold seats, endless rows of staring faces. The judge's gavel cracked, sharp as lightning. "Ms. Mitchell," the judge's voice boomed, hard as steel. "You stand accused of multiple counts of fraud, arson, and murder. How do you plead?" Eleanor's mouth went dry. Her heart slammed a wild tattoo. "What?" she whispered. "No, I don't understand." The room shifted suddenly, the gallery blinking into focus. Her children sat there, eyes ice cold. No love, no regret. The man she thought was her husband sat behind a thick, black barrier. Quiet, expressionless. Then the prosecutor stepped forward, smiling, cruel. "Your Honor, we have new evidence." He flicked a small device in his hand, images flashing on the huge screen behind him. Photographs she had never seen before. Evidence linking Eleanor not just to the fire, but to a sinister, long-planned conspiracy. She was the mastermind, a cold-blooded puppet master. The world spun. Her hands shook so hard she thought they might fall off. "Impossible," she muttered. "I never." But the photos told a different story. Documents signed with her name. Phone calls traced back to her number. Witnesses testifying to her presence at scenes she didn't remember visiting. Eleanor's breath hitched. "No," she gasped. "This can't be true." A sudden hush fell over the courtroom. The judge's face hardened. "Ms. Mitchell, do you have anything to say before proceeding?" Her throat clogged. Tears carved streams down her cheeks. Hot. Bitter. Unstoppable. A voice from the crowd echoed. "Was it all a lie? The asylum? The fire? Everything?" Another whispered back. "Who is she really?" Eleanor's mind screamed for answers, but none came. Then a hand reached out from the shadows. It was Nurse Clara. But Clara's face was pale, her eyes empty. She stepped forward, voice cracking. "It's time you learned the truth, Eleanor. Not the story you wanted, the story you created." Eleanor froze. Her whole world crumbled. Clara pulled a folded letter from her coat, wrinkled, stained. She handed it over. Eleanor's trembling hands unfolded the paper. The ink was smeared, but clear, written in her handwriting. But the words chilled her blood. "I planned it all, the fire, the lies, because without destruction, there is no rebirth." Her heart stopped cold. "No," she whispered, voice breaking. "I wrote this?" Clara's eyes darkened. "You did, in a moment you can't remember, when the darkness took hold." Eleanor's knees buckled. The courtroom walls twisted, closing in. Suddenly, the man behind the barrier spoke for the first time. Not her husband, not anyone she knew, but a stranger. "You are the architect of your own nightmare," he said, voice hollow. "Not a victim, not a pawn, but the one who pulled every string." Eleanor's breath caught. Her world shattered into 1,000 pieces. Because the biggest truth of all, she was the enemy. But the question that burned hotter than any flame, if she planned it all, then who had been watching her every move? And who, deep inside the shadows, was waiting for her final fall? The courtroom fell deathly silent after the letter's words slammed down like a verdict too cruel to be true. Eleanor's knees gave way, crumpling beneath her like dry leaves snapping underfoot. Her hands trembled violently, gripping the edges of her chair, as if it was the last anchor in a stormy sea. The faces around her blurred, her children's cold, accusing stares, the judge's iron gaze, Nurse Clara's empty eyes. But deep inside, her chest tightened with a fresh raw ache, the sharp sting of betrayal, cutting deeper than any blade. "You!" Eleanor gasped, voice ragged and broken. I didn't mean." "Save it," the man behind the glass sneered. "You built this nightmare. Every lie, every fire, every shattered memory, it's all you. And now you're the enemy." Her mind exploded in fragments, a whirlpool of horror and confusion. But amid the chaos, a tiny, blistering flame sparked within her, impossible hope. Then a new voice cut through the tension, low and steady. "Enough." Heads snapped toward the courtroom door. A woman stepped in, tall and resolute, eyes fierce with conviction. Someone no one expected, her youngest child. Different now, not the cold figure from before, but raw and real, trembling yet unbreakable. "I couldn't stay silent anymore," they said, voice cracking with desperation. "You are not alone in this. Yes, Mom. Yes, you made mistakes. But they twisted your story, used your pain. The fire, it was meant to bury the truth, not just ashes." The ring shifted, whispers growing, a current of doubt, a breath of mercy. Eleanor's heart pounded hard, her throat tight as she forced the words out. "What truth? Tell me, before I drown completely." Their eyes locked in a silent plea, trembling hands reaching across. The divide. There's more. The farm, the fortune, it's tied to something darker, something we all buried deeper than you ever realized. Suddenly, the barred door to the side creaked open. A figure stepped through. Not a stranger this time, but Nurse Clara. Her face was pale but determined, scars of pain etched in every line. "I was watching over you," Clara admitted with a brittle sigh. "Not to keep you quiet, but to protect you from what they wanted to make you into." Eleanor's breath hitched. The walls started to close in again, but this time, not with fear. It was like the tide turning. "Together," Clara whispered, "we can unmask the real enemy. Not the shadows you chased, but the darkness hiding in plain sight." The judge's gavel echoed, once, twice, slowing the room. "Miss Mitchell," the judge said with unexpected kindness, "you'll have a chance to prove what's true, to reclaim your story." Eleanor felt the tight knot in her chest loosen, just a little. The weight of endless lies hadn't disappeared, but now, maybe it could be lifted. Outside the courtroom, the sun broke through the dark clouds for the first time in years. But the biggest mystery hung thick in the air. Who was really pulling the strings? And would Eleanor ever find the courage to face her own shadow? And the unseen enemy waiting in the wings? Her hands still shook, but Eleanor's eyes burned with one fierce promise. This isn't over. Not by a long shot. You need to subscribe now. Don't miss the next chapter of this saga and the exclusive stories no one else will share. Smash the like button now to power up the channel and feed the algorithm like a true fan. Flood the comments with your reactions, theories, and who you think the real enemy is. And don't wait another second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to know the truth behind Eleanor Mitchell. This is the moment to show your support. Only the true fans understand how vital this is. Let's keep this story alive, together. If you like stories about farmers, about everyday life on the farm, and want to know what really happens in the daily lives of the biggest farmers in the world, the hidden stories of the richest owners, and the secrets of the farm girls that the media doesn't reveal, check out our virtual book with the most famous and secret stories from the farm. Click on the first link in the video comments and get yours now. You need to watch this now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait another second to share.